Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Hello, 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 hello. Oh my, excuse me. Well, how are you doing today? I hope that this podcast finds you healthy, feeling well, secure. Oh my, something in the throat besides my tongue. All right, we're continuing at the Lankavatara. Shakyamuni is digging deep into language to try to get his interlocutor, the persona or the personage created for the purpose of this discussion. You know, it occurs to me as I'm saying this, if you've been with the channel for a while, you know I've done over 300 videos on Nichiren's Gosho, right? All of his writings from different sources. And Nichiren talks a lot about, or in a format of question and answer. But Nichiren's quite obvious about it. He asks a question that infers an audience that's asking it, and then he provides an answer. And it's a methodology of teaching, right? Asks a hypothetical question, and then that offers him a floor with which to describe different aspects of the teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha. Well, that's a modern version, if you will. We don't think of Nichiren as modern because it's medieval Japan, but as far as the time periods of Buddhism is concerned, he is our modern mentor, yes? But my point is as we read the Lankavatara, we can see that the entire sutra of the Lankavatara is exactly what Nichiren adopted in the formal style of expedient means. Mahamati is not a real person. Mahamati, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, is not a singular person talking to an emancipated one. It's Shakyamuni saying, these are the kinds of questions you, Shravaka's, Pratyekabuddhas, Arhats have from at this point in your learning, in your training. And we need to take you to the next level, this Mahayana level. And so let me pose a dialogue of this interlocutions, this question and answer format, so that I can then explore these concepts from several different points of view with several different ideas in language that you might start to get a clue, get an insight as to where you're stuck, where your abilities and your understanding is developed and where it is stalled and where you need to extend and look beyond those areas where you think you've reached something but haven't. Yeah, it's the borderline of self-teaching, right? New information or new way of looking at the same information, suddenly, ding, the brain wakes up and the mind sees clearly and, oh, and invariably, the reason we don't get it completely right away is something Shakyamuni is pointing out repeatedly here, is habit energy. Because habit energy isn't just a habit that you do, but it's a habit that blocks you. It's a habit that fools you into thinking you've reached a point of complete awakening, enlightenment, or success in your thinking, but in point of fact, you have not. You need to transcend that supposed accomplishment in order to see well beyond it. And it's not until whatever sources of insight come to you that you break that wall. And then you can see it as an accomplishment because it's taken you further rather than an accomplishment which was the goal in itself. And so what we're struggling with throughout the Lankavatara so far has been this ego, this habit energy that's created and an ego is always a wall. It's always saying, you've reached it, you've reached it, you've reached it, when in fact, you, the ego, haven't reached anything. You may have expanded, right? And this is the problem with what he keeps referring to as the philosophers or the thinkers, the people in their minds, learning and realization, the Ichantika, right? He hasn't used that term much at all in the Lankavatara, but that's who he's talking to. He's talking to people that are so brilliant in their minds, their ego is so well honed and developed that they don't seek anything beyond that accomplishment. They fool themselves into thinking, I know so much. This is great. I've reached it. When in fact, that is a very solid wall of ego. And they need to transgress that ego. They need to get through it, beyond it, around it somehow. And so over and over again, Shakyamuni is trying to address this body of students, of disciples, of students, of monks, right? To get them to let go of this idea that they know everything, and to once again spark that initial student in them that's drawn to something beyond their day-to-day experience, their intelligence, right? This is when we talk about prajna, or Buddha wisdom, a wisdom born of deep, profound insight rather than knowing. See, the language gets in the way. We talk about it as wisdom, not knowledge. Knowledge is an accrued set of observances that we've categorized and identified and see. This is the mechanism of ego. How do we get beyond that? How do we accrue the data? Well and good, but we accrue it in order to better dissect it so that we mentally can evaporate our attachments to it, liberate ourselves from. As much as we categorize and define, it is the categorization that we want to obliterate. It's not annihilation of the samsaric source. We don't want to get rid of everything. We want to get rid of our reliance, our attachment, our personification of thing, and live moment to moment, fully experiencing all potential in each moment, rather than cataloging. It's like living in an immense warehouse and feeling so satisfied that we've created a cataloging system where we can find anything in the warehouse and anything new, we can slide right into those categories that we create. And never, ever walk outside the warehouse to experience life. A sunset, the snow falling. It's kind of like that. The mind, the ego, is like the warehouse, the alaya consciousness, yes? The database, the warehouse. Analogies abound here. And as amazing as those warehouses can be, they are not life. We want to live life fully. We need to get the hell out of the warehouse. We don't want to burn the warehouse down. But of what value does the warehouse truly have if we don't experience it in the context of the broader sense living that life, that beauty? I'm picturing a beautiful forest and babbling brooks and birds and fauna and flora, all outside this beautiful stainless steel building that's farther than the eye can see. The building has no majesty without its surroundings, without its context. So this is what Shakyamuni is trying to impress upon all of his students. You're doing a wonderful job of learning all these concepts and intellectualizing the process, but understand why you're understanding that process. Understand the larger context of life so that this cataloging, this samsaric existence has real meaning, not provisional, egotistically driven meaning, but life meaning. What the heck was that sound? The weather's changing here in northeast Mississippi, and so, yeah, it's about to get really cold here for a day. Oh, right. Weather. I just got out of my warehouse. All right, let's continue. Further, Mahamani, I will tell you about the features of jnana, or he says here, absolute knowledge. Not sure those are the right words to conceive of jnana, but jnana is an indication of experience, of the more profound understanding of the context of life, yeah? And the vijnana, which we've been talking about, the relative knowledge or the experience within samsara of these consciousnesses and our cataloging features, right? That's the vijnana. Again, referring to the nidana, right? It hasn't left us, this original teaching, but we're more profoundly approaching those very ideas that our eye consciousness, our ear consciousness, so on and so forth, are tools for perceiving the process of life. But we have, as a matter of nature, become completely enamored, attached to, dependent on those facilities for reality. And we've forgotten or haven't looked at the reason we have those facilities is to live a full life. It's like owning the most powerful computer. Unless you have something to apply the computer to, what value does it have? Living in the computer is maybe fun and exciting for a while, but it's also very stressful and anxiety filled, because are you doing it right? What am I doing this for? Am I going to, so on and so forth. But that's all well and good, but who's running the show and why is it running? How do I experience computerness? How do I use that facility to accomplish something far more overwhelming, right? So the Vijnana is relative knowledge, and when you and the other Bodhisattva Mahasattvas are well conversant with these distinctive features of the jnana and Vijnana, you will quickly realize supreme enlightenment. See, when you integrate your knowledge, your experience of samsara, things, and how things are manifested, constructed, identified, and then you develop knowledge, experience of transcending those samsaric things and seeing all of it as like Maya, like an essential quality of distinctions and identity that are not life itself, but allow you to perceive and understand and experience all of that by virtue of the process, moment to moment, that those things are not extant, real, permanent things, but that they are indicative of this much grander process of which we too are a part. This is when you'll unglue from that stuff, enjoy it, be with it, be amongst it, but with an entirely different perspective, yes? So this is what he's indicating. It's kind of he's condensed everything he's said so far. There are three kinds of jnana, okay? Worldly, superworldly, and transcendental. So even in this superior experience, understanding, again, he can define different levels within it. And really, there's a lot of 3s and 5s and so forth in Buddhism, but really what he's doing by explaining this is that he's once again reestablishing that experiences to the sentient mind that experiences, that there is a all-encompassing Buddha-ness that is this profound realization of the life process, yes? The universe itself, time, space. However, he's also, by virtue of the dialogue here, all of the Bodhisattva Mahasattvas, in other words, all of us, all these separate sentient minds, will experience or get to this experience via their own unique, multitudinous path, because we are all instantiations of amalgams of karma, amalgams of energy that are not identical. We share immense amounts, right? But we're not identical. So all of us, our insights, our aha moments, even if we use words that seem to be identical, our experience of those words, our understanding of those words, our reference, our database, our warehouses, they're unique. And so there are different stages, if you will, or colors of knowing. He's trying to capture this with words. Not easy. So he's defining 3 different types of this superior, this Buddha wisdom, yes? And he says, Now, worldly knowledge belongs to the philosophers. In other words, the warehouse. And to the ignorant and the simple-minded who are attached to the dualistic views of being and non-being. So this is a superior level of knowledge within samsara. And knowing all of that is both amazing in itself, but it's also kind of stuck. It's stuck in the warehouse. It's stuck not knowing it's stuck, because I know this whole warehouse and ego, right? So even in the superior knowledge, in the prajna, ego is still there. Superworldly knowledge belongs to all the Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas who are attached to the notions of individuality and generality. So once you study Buddhism and Shakyamuni's teachings, and you've arrived at his audience here, the Bodhisattvas who are really, they're not quite Bodhisattvas yet. They call themselves Bodhisattva Mahasattvas, but they're Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas. They're still in learning and realization. They haven't transcended the warehouse yet. But when you first start opening the doors of the warehouse and peering into life, you may think that you've arrived. But you're on the cusp, we would say, right? You haven't traveled far from the warehouse. But certainly you've gained some tremendous insight. Transcendental knowledge, which is free from the dualism of being and non-being, belongs to the bodhisattvas and takes its rise when they thoroughly examine things of imagelessness, see into the state of no birth and no annihilation, and realize egolessness at the stage of tathagatahood. Now that's supremely important right there. And it may seem like one simple step, 1, 2, 3, but it's a huge, huge step, right? It's precipitous. Because on the one hand, you're a master of the database. On the next hand, because we're going to have 3 hands here, on the next hand, you understand that the database is a construct from within a larger context of life. And then this truly transcendental step, this transmigration happens, where you understand that all of it is all the same thing. That the sparks, the sparkler, the hand holding the sparkler, the air with which the sparkles and the sparks exist and manifest, all of it, it's all the same process. The warehouse isn't a separate thing. Oh, I thought I let go of all that separation and identification. But you were maintaining the identification of the warehouse as separate from the environment. And you. All of that is the same thing. Moment to moment to moment to moment. That final step, even though we talk about it, intellectualize about it, to truly experience it, that's a step much further, is it not? Vijnana is subject to birth and destruction, right? That's the very construct of Vijnana, our mind of perception. It emerges from this apparatus, and when this apparatus ceases, it also ceases. It's extinct. So our mind of perception is a temporary thing, just like everything else. And jnana is not subject to birth and destruction, because the experience of experiencing the mechanism from which this apparatus comes into being in order to emerge a mind, well, that goes on irrespective of your birth and death, my birth and death, the birth and death of this book, of the sky, of this planet, of the universe. It is the process of formation. To experience that, let's say it differently, to experience the immensity of that process of formation, that potential energized, quite literally, energy coming from quiescence to becoming, not something, but becoming, to experience that from this place, from the became, that is truly something that can only occur to a sentient mind. How precious is that? How many sentient minds do you know? Oh, Sylvain, there are 8 billion on the planet. Yeah? Okay. Situate this planet in the solar system, which is immense beyond comprehension. And then take that and put that solar system into this galaxy. Can't even conceive of it. In terms of the galaxy, you and I are moving at hundreds of thousands of miles per hour. Yeah, on a swirling arm. And then multiply that by billions. All right, can't hold it in my head. My mind can't conceive it. There's illustrations and attempts at trying to understand that. And if you've ever worked with telescopes or astronomy or done any kind of study in that, the time machine that is looking with our feeble little eyes into that depth of the universe, it'll just knock you on your butt. It's just unfathomable. Further, Mahamadi Vijnana falls into the dualism of form and no form, being and non-being, and is characterized with multiplicity. But jnana is marked with the transcendence of the dualism of form and no form, right? Because we're looking at formation, not the result, not the namarupa, before the namarupa. That inconceivable place of potential and agitation, something manifesting in the process of manifesting, not manifested, but the formation. The way, where does that plasma look like? Yeah, feel like, and in our minds we can conceive of it. But if you conceive of it as yet another thing, you haven't made that third stage, right? That liberating experience of being in that. And that's what we do when we chant. But in the Lankavatara, not yet disclosed. Further, Mahamadi Vijnana, our earthly consciousnesses, is characterized with accumulation, and jnana with non-accumulation. The warehouse, the database, versus, oh, that's just more sparks of this process. More instantiations, not relevant. Only to be experienced and appreciated and be amongst, but this momentum, this is what I'm now aware of. Yes? Jnana is of three kinds: that which ascertains individuality and generality, that which ascertains birth and decay, and that which ascertains no birth and no decay. So he's just moving through the three realms of, they're realms of perception, of experience. One, the warehouse. I'm in it. Look at all the stuff. Birth, death, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death. Oh, and understanding that everything is temporary, impermanent, that is that birth, death process. That's the second stage of enlightenment experience, because there's still individuality and generality, right? And we ascertain birth and decay, that everything is impermanent. And then in the final wisdom experience, that we're no longer in that stage of understanding and experiencing the world as permanent or impermanent. But then there's this third stage of simply observing, witnessing moment to moment, the happening of life. Make sense? Further, Mahamati, jnana is devoid of attachment. Of course, it would have to be. Because the moment you identify something, you're putting the brakes on momentum. Be in the momentum of life. Vijnana attaches itself to the multitudinous of objects. Again, Vijnana is produced from the concordance of the triple combination, right? We talked about that before. Jnana, in its self-nature, has nothing to do with the combination or concordance. Self-nature, terrible translation there. Jnana in this discussion is that formation energy. And so there's no form or produced in that experience. There's not even producing. There is the impetus, the momentum from which, there's producing and product and produced and all of that. But that's just like the dust after the spark is, what's the word I'm looking for? It's dispersed. It's no longer a spark. It's just, right? So that's what everything becomes, just this passing through of samsara, rather than being in samsara. We're still in samsara, to be sure, but our experience of it is unattached, unidentified, a mist. Again, Mahamati, jnana is characterized with unattainability. It is the inner state of self-realization by noble wisdom, and as it neither enters nor goes out, it is like the moon in the water. So it is said, karma is accumulated by sita, the energy with action, work, definition, right? The nidana. It's accumulated, it's said that it's accumulated by sita, by experience of mind, and discriminated by jnana. So now he's bouncing a little bit, and he's saying this jnana, this overall wisdom, this formation wisdom, this experience of formation, doesn't annihilate everything that's, as I said before, produced or producing or produced. It sees it all. It's just not attached to it. It's a magnificent experience of life in all its potential manifestations. Totally sees it. Doop-a-doop-a-doop-doop-doop. And one acquires by prajna the state of imagelessness and the powers being the ability to experience this without attachment, yes? Sita is bound up with an objective world, the produced, and the experience of the produced. Jnana evolves with reflection. Oh, look at that. It's detached from. It's an observer. And prajna evolves in the exalted state of imagelessness and in the excellent conditions. The excellent conditions being unattached. Sita, manas, and vijnana are devoid of thoughts and discriminations. It is the Shravakas and not the Bodhisattvas that try to reach reality by means of discrimination. So this describes that ego stumbling block that early students keep running into, this warehouse. The Tathagata's jnana is pure, the experience of complete, right, Tathagata-ness, suchnesses. It's pure, it's untethered. Resting in quietude, in the most excellent patience or recognitions of truth, this quelling sense of life. It is productive of excellent sense and is devoid of purposiveness. Prajna, with me, Buddha, is of three kinds, another three. Whereby the wise grow powerful. Power in Buddhism isn't about money and manipulation. Power is about self-knowing, about this realization of the immensity of the life process that we have the rare singular opportunity to experience. Individual signs are discriminated and all things are manifested, right? You see the process. Don't deny it, don't annihilate it, we just witness it. My prajna has nothing to do with the two vehicles, cataloging and identifying with the warehouse, the database, right? It excludes the world of beings, because beings, in this sense, are the produced. That of the Shravakas evolves from their attachment to the world of beings. The Tathagata's prajna is spotless because of its being in accord with the mind only. In accord, not the mind only itself. And a lot of Buddhists make that mistake. They think that the greater they experience the mind and its workings, the more they enter this Buddha-ness or future Buddha lands, for instance. But here he says it quite clearly, and Suzuki got this, I think, in whatever words he's using, he got the perspective on this correctly. The prajna is spotless because of its being in accord with the mind only. So consider that for a moment. What is the mind only? If the mind is our sentience, our ability to experience all of this identification, and yet we aren't sucked into the identification, but we still experience it, then what are we experiencing, if not the things? So this is a very fine point, right? The mind provides a facility for us to experience all of these manifestations of potential, which is endless, right? But when we transcend that attachment, that perception that we are identifying, and we push that out just a little bit, our awareness, our experience becomes one of not even a self, but an observation of what that self is embroiled in. The very making, we become observers of Sylvain Ness, Judy Ness, Bob Ness, so on. Yeah, there's another removal of attachment for observation, and the mind becomes in concert with, in accord with that realization. Make sense? Now, this reminded me of some lectures I've had, and it's in a book that I wrote, this discussion of Wu Ji. I think the chapter's called From Wu Ji to You and Me. Wu Ji being an ancient Chinese concept, Taoist concept. And it's illustrated as one of two ways, a point or a circle. And it's described variously as a previous teacher of mine in the martial arts would call a point or a place, not a place, a point of no extremities. In other words, nothing instantiated. Quiescent energy, yeah? Because what is a point, as we've discussed before? A point is not a thing, it's a location. And the circle is something that simply represents potential, but there's no thing in it. It's nomina. It's quiescent energy, ripe, pregnant with potential. Needs only the slightest agitation, the slightest disturbance, the slightest perturbation for manifestations, the namarupa, to come from this excitation, this tendency, and in a certain condition. Does it then accumulate? Or does it then fall back away and influence other energy potentials around it until finally, boom, it happens. Everything just springs forth from it. Like a volcano, like sparks, like once a reaction begins, then reactions upon reactions about combinations, about amalgams, blah, 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 blah. It just, we get a universe. It's immense. It's hard to conceive of. But once again, I'm thinking of Horton Hears a Who and his dandelion. Such an amazing pictorial understanding of our experience in life. Okay. I hope you got some insights from this. I hope that, my hope always is, that these dialogues, these discussions, penetrate through the rhetoric of these translations and of these sutras and all of this teaching that we have from Shakyamuni, so that we can more profoundly experience our practice of Namo Myo Renge Kyo. What is it that all of this self-instantiating Buddha-ness built on? You don't have to know all of this stuff. The reason we read all of this and discuss all of this isn't because it's essential for our understanding Buddha-ness. The reason we're doing this is simply to continue to be motivated, convinced, have the conviction in our efforts to powerfully instantiate our Buddha-ness, to not make it just rote habit, to not make it yet just another ritual in aisle 47, row B, so on and so forth, in that box. Oh, here's my Buddhist practice. Let's pull that out and play with that for a while. No. We want each Namo Myoho Renge Kyo to have the energy, the focus, the demand that we experience not the warehouse, but the largesse of being, the universe itself, that life. Now, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. And you can see by studying these writings, these sermons, teachings, that it's never been an easy thing to identify. Yeah? That our egos, our minds, our catalogs, our warehouses, our forklifts, they're very, very, very engaging. We're entangled with them, embroiled with them constantly. So to pull away from and yet continue to maintain that experience at the same time, it can be a struggle. It takes effort. So this resource, the podcasts, the website, the bookstore, the mandala store, all of this, I've put it together to help sustain my practice, and I'm sharing it with you and this Sangha. So please, like, subscribe, right? If you can, support through Patreon or PayPal. Let's grow this Sangha. Let's get more people thinking this way. Because through this way of thinking, everything becomes possible. Everything becomes less of an obstacle. Life becomes a goal of joy and amazement rather than a idle collection of stuffness and identity and fragility and competition, and right? This life is so amazing. Why spend another day missing it? Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Thanks again. Please take care of your health. Strengthen your practice every day. And I'll see you in the next one. I love you guys. You're amazing. Continue to be so. All right. Bye for now.